There you are. I see all you fish peeps. Hey guys, it's Biggs. Welcome back. It's been a long time. You guys know I'm not a regular streamer. I'm not a guy who goes online very, very often. Joey's texting me saying I'm here, but he's not here. He's not showing up at all. So let me try this again here. Give me a second. Bear with me. I don't know what you guys can see right now, but maybe you see a blank screen. Maybe you see a weird dude. Don't really know. But we'll have it here in just a second. He had to get his hair just right. All right. So before we even start, before Joe even shows up, I'm going to get down some ground rules, tell you guys what's going to happen. Now, anybody that's ever watched me stream before, I always have lots of fun. All sorts of crazy stuff. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes I plan, like almost like an educational lesson. Sometimes I just don't. We just go with the flow. That's exactly what we're doing tonight. This literally came about yesterday while me and him were chatting about something. And I just jokingly said to him, I says, what are you doing tomorrow night? You want to go live? And he said, sure. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we go live tomorrow night. I'm actually sitting in a hotel room about 6 hours away from my family for work. And I'm going to be doing a lot more traveling for work now that the world's starting to open up again. So, but getting back to the topic at hand. Okay, tonight, we're just going to have some fun. Me and Joey, we're going to cut loose a little bit. We're going to have some fun. So there's a bit of a disclaimer. There's the possibility of some adult humor. There's the possibility either of us may have a bit of a potty mouth. It could happen. Could get very well. Could get demonetized. Don't really know. That's not the plan. We're not trying to be jerks. We're not trying to be dicks. We're just having some fun. Now, Joey, he's the king of DIY. He's got one of the absolute monster channels. Every single one of us that does YouTube, we all have to take a knee and give him the nod of respect because he's paved the road for each and every one of us. I like to count him as a dear friend, but tonight we are not going to talk about, unless he wants to, it's entirely up to him. We're not going to talk about his public aquarium and what's going on with that situation. This is Joey, our fish friend tonight. We're not going to be badgering about stuff like that. So the chat's open. We're not sure if you guys are going to get any questions in. Don't really know because Biggs likes to talk. Joey likes to talk. We're going to have some fun. I've got about half a dozen beers lined up there and more in my fridge. So we're going to have some good times. So without further ado, my friends, let's bring in the man. Figure out how to get him in here. There he is. Oh, look at his hair's on point.
It's not. Oh man, yeah, a little bit tired today. Energy levels might be a little low right now, but yeah, we can talk about whatever you want, really. I mean, it is what it is.
So you don't have your own jokes all prepared for me. Well, I wanted up to be your dad.
I had a long night. I was up. I had a buddy come home from out west last night, and we were up till like 6 a.m. catching up.
Checking the lobster traps.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I have no idea how many people. We got 20 people here online. I'm sure that's going to change and go crazy pretty soon because having someone like you on board. I only usually get 5. But.
No, you usually get a good crowd in here, don't you? I could imagine.
Double echo and crisp talk. How do I correct that?
I'm echoing.
It says me. I got one of these fancy little things. It's plugged in. Maybe I'm using it wrong because I'm me. Nice to see you. We got Big Rich. You got Jonathan. I got Wally Kern, Mike, whole bunch of people here. The chat goes too fast for me to follow it. So I think the super chats are available there. If that flags it somehow. You guys know I don't know how to use half this stuff, but it's all good for fun. Oh, Jonathan says it's fixed. So somehow by turning my microphone around,
Oh, because it was picking me up. It was echoing.
I don't know anything about tech. So I'm going to ask you whole piles of random questions today. Some may be about fish, some may not. I'm going to tell everybody, and I'm telling my guests tonight that we're just having some fun. There's no intention. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. especially my guests, but no more than like I do honor my guests because we're gonna have some fun. We jab each other all the time. So, but hey, Joey, how actually old are you? I'm 51, so I know I'm like basically your dad. So,
you'd have to be a young father. I'm 38. So you would have been only 13, which I suspect was probably when you started getting busy anyway.
38. Just waiting for your hair to all start falling out now, eh?
Oh, it's probably going to happen soon. That's why I started growing it. I was like, well.
So when you started doing YouTube, was your voice different and then it changed midway? I think my voice is different on YouTube and off YouTube anyways, because like everybody has like that customer service voice versus like, their sitting around home voice. And, so I kind of got two voices anyway. I know. I'm the same loud, obnoxious individual all the time. So if you were to say, the two major cities in Saskatchewan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're from out east. Do you call it Saskatoon or do you call it Saskatoon?
Saskatoon.
Okay. So that's your radio announcer voice. But if you go with your East Coastern, when you're out with your lobster fisherman friends, you'd say it differently.
I'd probably still say it the same. That's my problem is I only talk to Americans, so I lost most of my Atlantic Canada accent a long time ago. Yeah.
So you said your buddies just got back from the west coast. Were they up in the oil patch? Because I know a lot of.
Yeah, he's up in Alberta. He sells heavy machinery though, so he wasn't doing the oil thing, and he's down for 3 weeks, and we usually have a few drinks, and when he comes back and catch up and stuff, but a few turned into all, and so I was a little under the weather all day long.
There was a lot of talk yesterday. Oh, today, no, he's not as much talk. All right, that's okay. That's prepared.
Yeah.
Just to like those two insane cats.
They're around here.
They're not cats. It's like they're like tigers or something.
Oh, savannas.
I
can hear them. I don't know where they went.
No, I'm sure they're just going to come lunging out midway through the feed and just hit your head or something.
Oh yeah, they might bite me.
So I've kept on it. I know you follow my channel adamantly. You watch every video. He's my most loyal follower. But that I keep all sorts of crazy animals, and I've kept all sorts of weird stuff over the years, and now's no exception with the tarantulas and the isopods and everything. Have you ever kept anything? Because I know when you were talking about the public aquarium, which we're not going to talk about, you were going to keep you wanted to keep a caiman.
Yeah, dwarf caiman crocodiles. I wanted to keep them years ago anyway, when I did the original building beside my house, and I got the permits and everything for them, and then I just ran out of space, so I wasn't able to get them. So I've been wanting to keep them for years and years, and I finally was going to be able to, and then, well, that's not going to happen now, but I don't feel like it's that big of a letdown. I mean, I think that, it would have been really cool to, do something like that, but basically, as an end result, I got to look at it the positive. I just bought all kinds of stuff.
About the aquarium.
Yeah. But now I can take all that stuff and upgrade everything in the building beside my house now, like the original gallery. So, I don't see it being too bad of too down of a thing.
Why don't you be like a circus master and make an aquarium and take it across country? You can just have all these giant tanks in like a semi-trailer or something like that. You can be the ringmaster.
Yeah, I think that would work. A lot of people do think I belong in a circus anyway, so it would be too far off.
All right. Okay. So you've allegedly bred, I have no real confirmation of any of this, but you've allegedly bred a couple species of aquarium fish over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any specific one that really stands out, that was really memorable to you, or that really inspired you? Like, you bred this one fish and you're like, that was the one I'd been working on. Don't say discus.
No, I mean, discus were fun and it was interesting. Stingrays, all different types of cichlids. But I used to have these, and this might even be pretty boring, but I used to have this pair of Rothkiel zevrums, redhead or red shoulder, whatever they're called for their more common names.
Yes.
And I had a breeding pair, and they were just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And they would have these swarms of fry, and it was just awesome. I just really enjoyed it. It was one of the first fish that I purposely bred. Sometimes when you first get in the hobby, like fish will happen to breed in your tank. But it's like one of the fish that was really hard to get around here at the time, like, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago. And I wanted to breed them just to have more of them. And I did. And one day I was doing a water change during the spring, and they must have flushed the lines or something like that. And both of them died within minutes of the tank being filled up. So that sucked. But I did have a lot of the fry left, and they were in a tank. And I grew them out, and I didn't keep breeding them, but those ones that I really enjoyed the most, it just kind of sucked that the adults didn't make it with that water change.
Yeah, that was that's where you and me were very different. Mine was always the science behind stuff, and I've always viewed every single fish as a piece of the puzzle. And I have to figure out where the puzzles go together to get that fish to breed. And then once I've bred that fish, it's like I almost lose interest in it, and I have to move it on and do another fish. And I remember in 1 year, I got my grandmasters in the breeder, and that's not a gloat thing, but I remember getting my grandmasters in breeding aquarium fish with the local club. I did it in 3 years.
Oh, shoot.
It was insane. The whole basement at my parents' home growing up had, 30 Rubbermaid garbage cans percolating with fry. It was just insane.
Yeah, how do they feel about that? I guess they wouldn't care. I guess it could be doing worse.
The black mold apparently was a bit of an issue that formed on the upper levels and around all the windows. Apparently that was caused by the few aquariums I had in the basement.
Yeah, older homes, they do it. I've had black mold here and there.
It's all before they had, any of the invention of things like what are those units? I have one in my house.
Air exchanger?
Air exchanger, yeah. I have one of those in my house. Air comes in, air goes out. Like, where is it going? Like, what's it doing? And it works awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a big game changer for fish rooms. I think most of them should have one. If I don't have mine on, like mine, I had one that fried. It's just within days, the walls will start sweating. It gets so bad in there, and it's just so uncomfortable. And because I heat the building, recently I've been gone back to heating the tanks, but I'm probably going to be heating the building again here soon. But it's a night and day thing. But I have a heat recovery ventilator, so it's trapping like something like 60% of the heat instead of just sucking out air and then pumping in cold air. It's trapping like heat in that core, and as air comes back in, it has to travel through that core, and it heats it back up. Something like that. I'm not sure how that works, and it's like 100 watts. It's not a huge power consumption type thing. Very energy efficient. Might even be less than that.
I remember like Spencer's warehouse in Winnipeg, when he had his smaller warehouse in the city, he had an older unit, and it was awesome. But in the wintertime, it would leave, I don't know what the bottom one is that you see in a cave, a stalagmite or a stalactite.
Oh, yeah.
Like wherever that thing, the port came out, there'd be this cone that would just grow up to it.
I have it the side of my house too, or the side of the building. It's a big thing. It's all that humidity coming out and freezing when it hits the air and forms those big giant icicles.
And then in the summertime, the thing never worked because it was always insanely hot and humid. So it didn't work. We just had the doors open. All righty. So you're an omnivore, right? You eat everything. Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. I like how I set these questions up in a way that you have no idea where this is going. So if you could only one type of meat for the rest of your life, and it had to be a tropical fish that's in the hobby of some type. It could be something like an airpain, a tropical fish that we know of, and that's the only meat you could eat. What would it be? Tilapia. It's already being commercially farmed. That is like the worst possible choice you could come up with. I'm not huge into eating fish, and tilapia is a white flesh that's not very oily or greasy, so it's one of the easiest ones to eat. They're farmed and they're garbage. Well, if I had to go something else, I'd probably go for. Man, Oscars are reportedly supposed to taste pretty good. Yeah. What else? I'd probably maybe something from. It would definitely be a big cichlid, or no, maybe like alligator gar,
or something substantial. So I only got to like kill one every, I don't know, month or so.
So I was thinking you could go with options like I would
Sturgeon.
say blood parrot or something like that to take them all out of the market. I would just eat them all like candy. But realistically, like I would think
They do look like a little candy apple.
Yeah,
you can put them on a stick.
I'm not a fish eater. I've never been a fish eater, and it's honestly has nothing to do with ethics or.
I think I was being more practical.
I just never have really been a fan of eating fish. But to me, pacu or topaki is one of the most cherished meat fishes in South America, and Big Witch would say they're rather plentiful. So it'd be a good food source.
Yeah.
And have you ever eaten red-tail catfish? Have you ever been to the Amazon?
No. I've thought about going, but like when I have, at the time I was considering, I have young kids. It's really hard for me to like even want to go anywhere and miss out on even a week of their life because I won't miss anything. So for the longest time, I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to do anything. In fact, I'm probably not going to be doing much more travel, especially with restrictions are starting to lift, and I might be able to like get to the States near the end of this year. But if I do, that will probably be the last trip I do for a long time.
Yeah,
I'm just done.
I'm booked for a convention, I think the end of October, and where like I know the rules are starting to loosen up and change. But it's not a matter of me being able to cross or just the legal aspects. There's got to be flights available, and my family's got to feel safe that Dad's going to this event. That's the big one.
Yeah.
I agreed to that one because there's people coming over from Europe and stuff that were also speaking at the same event, and I thought, well, I won't be able to come. So,
what event is it? End of October?
It's the big catfish convention. It's in Madison, Wisconsin, in October.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's about 5 speakers. They're coming from several. Most of them come from all over the States, and then there's a woman that's coming over from the Netherlands, and then some weird Canadian.
Yeah, some weird Canadian. Are you doing keynote again? You typically are a keynote. Anytime I've been around, you're always keynote.
Usually. I just did the entertaining banquet talks. To me, I've been offered, many other clubs have asked me to speak at different things. Yeah. And they'll ask me for like a specific kind of thing. And I'm like you, unless I have direct, firsthand, practical application knowledge about that, I don't want to be that guy that just goes and puts together a presentation just because I can take pictures of fish and I worked at a pet store. You know what I mean? If I want to put on like if I want to speak at an ACA or an OCA or one of those big ones, either it's a banquet talk or it's going to be some sort of, collecting this item in this area, the region of the world and stuff. And I just don't have enough of that under my belt that I feel I could go and portray that properly. I want to, like you, I want to be transparent. I want to be authentic. I want to be exactly what I portray. And I want to back that up with whatever I do. So, it's all good.
So what would you have done differently with the public aquarium?
Bigger.
You would have went bigger?
Well, honestly, like when you and me talked, and we talked a little bit about it at the very, very beginning, just in the idea of like you and me having that conversation, and then me just kind of thinking about what prior to you actually talking about space tanks, what you wanted to do, nothing. You didn't even have all that knowledge yet. But I thought that when you went into a bigger space, that you would take it to the next level. And what I meant by that would be a 10,000 gallon Amazon wall aquarium, with a full planted wall behind it and stuff like that. Like stuff that you see at some of these guys that have these monster things like a Big Rich or the guy Rod at Predatory Fins, taking those style aquariums, but giving them that zoo exhibit, all the plants and all the other life around it, like, the turtles and maybe the caimans in an aquarium with fish. That's kind of what I more had the idea. But it's not something you talked about. It's just kind of, I thought, he's always going to go bigger, always, Yeah. But you went in a different way, and your way was more practical. Your way made more sense because it was more practical as to the public.
Yeah.
Anybody they want can go to Ripley's, in Toronto or go to the big public aquariums and see a whale or a penguin or a gigantic reef aquarium of the animals from that area. But you were basically solidifying everything that you've spent 13 years doing in a public format. Everything that you said originally that you wanted to do with your first aquarium gallery, but it ended up being a zoning issue because it's on your personal property.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just going to, it was all going to be aquariums that people could actually replicate at homes. I do. A lot of people thought I'd have like 50,000 gallon tanks and all that sort of thing. And, I think those are really cool to look at. And, I would love to have lots of stuff like that. But in the long run, I don't think that that's going to hugely benefit the average hobbyist, type of deal.
Very true.
And that's kind of what I've always been trying to do is, grow this hobby as much as I possibly can and get as many people into it as I can before I get sick of talking to a camera and I just disappear with my fish tanks, and that'll be at some point, so I can't make YouTube videos forever, but, I don't know how much longer, a few more years. Who knows? I don't know what's next. I know that I'm really excited about what I'm working on out there now. Like, for example, did I show you that I picked up the 375 gallon and put it 4 feet in the air now? Yeah, it's really
the one that you lifted up. I don't know if it's already, you haven't shared it with anybody yet, but you shared me the text pictures of you lifting it up and putting it there.
Yeah, I was heavy. Yeah.
We were talking about the cleaning and the filtering aspect of it, what fish was going in it.
Yeah, it'll be self-cleaning. There won't be any maintenance needed, really. A little scrubbing here and there, but I'm going to do a few cool things out there that I really want to do that I think is fun, and I'm doing it before. Like, a lot of times, what I used to do is like I'd announce something and talk about it and give you ideas of what I'm going to do, and then for like a month straight, I'd have to hear people being like, I don't like it. Do this instead. This is horrible. I hate it. And then when it's done, the majority is like, oh, I like it. At first, I didn't like it. Now I do. So I'm not doing that. I'm just it's already done. And then the video is just going to come out. So I haven't been talking about any of that stuff. It's a ton of pressure when, you really want to do something, but, there could be hundreds or even thousands of people, that say it's stupid or they don't like it, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just kind of removing that off the table for the time being and just doing stuff that I think is really cool.
Yeah, just be you, do your thing, right? People like it or they don't like it. Like, you and me talked a little bit about my channel in the past, and this isn't the place for it, but like, I can't not be me, right? And if we're going to do a video about castrating pigs, oh, well, that's what's coming out today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my type of video, but I think that some people that like that stuff will watch, but people also watch for you. So when you make a video, it doesn't necessarily need to be something they want to see, but they want to see you doing it, whatever you're up to, and kind of checking in. And so you can't really be too scared about making videos. Just got to be careful not to like upload other people's clips or anything like that, because then you can get copyright and have your channel taken down eventually. So,
well, from now on, I'm just going to basically watch whatever video you do, and then the next week I'm going to release that video. But I'll change the thumbnail a little bit, and I'll put somebody way sexier in front of the camera.
Perfect. There you go. That's not actually an uncommon strategy for some people. All
right. So more questions for you. What aquarium that you currently have in your aquarium gallery at home do you secretly hate? Now, it might be something that, there's got to be one tank in that room that you hate it because the way it's positioned, the maintenance. See, I told you, I can put you on the spot. You don't want to talk about stuff like that.
I know which one it is. It's an easy one for me. My saltwater tank. I don't like anything about it. I had really good ideas, but then I felt like pressured so much to go reef, and do this and do high tech. And I'm like, I don't want to do all that. And, you just kind of feel a little pressured, and it's no longer like that. I've changed everything. That place isn't the same anymore. I just got finished redoing the floors last night. Like, everything is going to get redone. Well, not last night, 2 nights ago. Last night, I was certainly not in any condition to do the floor, but maybe lay on it. But
I've never really done saltwater at all. And to me, like, I worked in a store that was primarily saltwater, so I've been around and immersed in it and stuff. But like, being a little bit older, and I'm not using that as the crutch, but like back in the day, saltwater for me at a pet store was just the constant rape of the wild. there was very, very little consideration of sustainability, captive breeding. And I applaud all those efforts of like these fisheries in Hawaii and some of these really, really well-maintained fisheries that are doing some amazing things, clownfish and now the tangs and a whole bunch of stuff. But back then, nobody cared, it seemed. And then when they later on, they started doing the poisoning in the reef to try and catch the fish, like using cyanide. I was like, this is crazy. I don't want to be cyanide.
I think sometimes they'll put electrodes in the water, shock them, but the cyanide was pretty bad. There's been a lot of captive breeding programs happening over the years. I believe it's Biota that's doing yellow tangs now. You can't get yellow tangs anymore. So they used to be like $30-$40. Maybe they were relatively cheap saltwater fish, but then they went up to like $400 a piece.
They almost closed down the fisheries. I was kind of privy to a lot of the information of what was happening with Hawaii. They had actually shut down the entire fisheries of Hawaii, and that's where your yellow tang came from.
Yeah,
I had a whole bunch of footage of yellow tangs submitted to me by a bunch of people, and all the work to be able to do a video, and it just never needed to happen. And then when it needed to happen, it's just I couldn't put it together in that time frame. And I think the fishery's back open, but it's one of the most well-run fisheries in the world, apparently, for sustainability.
Yeah, I think the saltwater hobby has made leaps and bounds, but there's a lot of things that like the average hobbyist doesn't know, even when it comes to farming for, freshwater fish, and not necessarily farming, but how many can actually be exported every year. Like for example, stingrays, they're highly regulated for the most part. Obviously, some people aren't, following the laws and rules, but and it changes every year. The numbers, like maybe you're only allowed to export 1,000 black diamond stingrays or Leopoldis that year, and then the next year it might only be 500, or it continuously fluctuates and changes. But if we don't have at least, and I guess that there could be a massive debate for wild caught versus tank raised. And I think that the uninformed person will always say, do not keep wild caught. But there's so many benefits to it if done responsibly. Of course, there's entire economies built around fishing. The fishing industry. And I mean, if these guys in South America aren't able to fish, maybe they'll turn to forestry and start or building dams or et cetera, et cetera. It's a big snowball effect. But also we need to have new blood in the line in the hobby. We can't just continue to dilute and dilute and dilute. The fish start losing color. They're not as strong. They don't. There's so many problems with them at some point or another. But I don't even know where you stand on that. I think that you probably,
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, I feel the same about that.
Fish, like the one fish that always stands out to me that's captive bred. It's easily bred. It's a small tetra. I don't know exactly which country it comes from, but if you bring them in out of the wild, they're exactly what they were named for, the common name and everything. But the ones that are farmed raised have none of it, and it's the gold dust tetra. It's a small tetra. It's almost the same size as a glow light tetra. So okay. I can't think of, I'm not a Carrison guy, so I don't know exactly what the gender is. That hemigrammus, or I don't know. But the gold dust tetra. And it looks like when you pull it out of the wild, it is completely covered in like gold flake. And it's stunning in a planted aquarium. It looks like the thing has got gold flake all over it. But
like flakes, or does it look like dust? Gold, like velvet disease.
Yeah. But when you bring it out of Indonesia for farmed, it has no color. It literally looks like a gray fish. I'm like, why would you farm that? And I don't remember. I'm going to sound dumb because I don't remember the actual reason as to why it doesn't get that gold coloration in captivity. But I'm like, perfect example.
It just doesn't get it in captivity. I wonder if it's been. I can't imagine.
Always have it.
They what?
Wild caught fish always have it. And they're stunning. But anytime they're captive bred, they lose.
They don't have it. Wow. Yeah, interesting.
But I agree 100% with you. Brazil has changed a lot. I did a couple of videos with some different experts. It was more pertaining to the situation with killifish in the States, of something that happened with a bunch of these seizures. But Brazil has been very aggressively trying to change a bunch of their rules. You've probably noticed, like, fish that you haven't seen for 15, 20 years, all of a sudden are now available again. that we, unless it appeared on Brazil's positive list, you could never get it before. And now they've kind of changed their way. So you're getting like that Xingu orange pike that's coming in again. That's, the color of a Japanese orange. It's stunning.
Mm-hmm.
So
that'd be nice. Maybe I should get into some pikes. I mean, there's so many, or corniculas. I think cornicula. Yeah. That's something I've never kept before, and there's so many beautiful.
They're not overly expensive as wilds. I know my local wholesaler gets them in, and I'm sure your guy could get them in. With Brazilian connections, they come out of the Xingu system. I can't say with any authority as to whether or not they're seasonal in their collection, but when they're young, when they're juveniles, till they get about 4 or 5 inches, they are the color like the clear orange of a Japanese mandarin, and they'll have black stripes down the side. Out of all the pike cichlids, and I've bred maybe half a dozen species, and I've kept probably close to 2 dozen species, they are normally, when you get those big salami type pikes, they get very, very aggressive as they get older. But this one here, when it takes about the 6, 7, 8 inch range, it completely changes its color palette, and it goes to more of a red, subdued red burgundy color. But the males and females are obviously different. One gets a bright white dorsal crest. It's been years since I've kept them. I believe it's the female. And the female gets more of a obvious cherry belly. But the thing, I had 13 of them. This is going back to 1992. And the reason I remember the year is it coincides exactly with when the Minnesota Aquarium Society hosted the American Cichlid Association convention. And I went down there and I saw one of these in a display tank. And it was like, holy, what is that? And I came back to Winnipeg. And at the time in Winnipeg, the world-renowned discus breeder, Mr. Dale Jordan, actually lives in Winnipeg and still does. He was known worldwide for breeding discus. And then he ran a wholesale operation. And I basically phoned him up and I said, I saw this fish. You didn't have cell phones, couldn't take a picture. I just told him what it was. And a week later, he had them for me. And I grew them up in a 180-gallon tank. They were all about a foot and a half long. Not a foot and a half, but about a foot, maybe 12, 13 inches in size. They were all, when they were full size, they were about the diameter of a beer bottle. But the nice thing about them is they weren't horribly territorial or aggressive. They stayed together as a group. The only thing that was weird is in that tank, I also had about half a dozen or 8 silver dollars. And silver dollars were my dither fish of choice for any big cichlid. Central American, South American, didn't matter. They're just big, quick fish that can handle a little bit of aggression and get away quickly. The only problem being is the cichlids had found a way to take the eye on the left side of every silver dollar out. So the tank was beautiful. It was gorgeous with all the fish would swim to the right. But when the silver dollars would turn at the end and go the other way, it was macabre. Every single one of them was missing.
That is interesting. Yeah. Weird. You'd think they would have learned.
Yeah.
Well, not the Jerson isn't all that intelligent, I guess. I've been watching the piranhas lately, and they when they want to see what I'm doing, they'll swim up and turn sideways and look at me through one eye. Yeah. So I wonder if that's it made me think, like, what you can't see going straight ahead, obviously they should be able to.
Yep. Well, they might be crepuscular too. Meaning they might wake up earlier than the other fish. There's certain fish like that fish from Madagascar, that starry night, the Madagascar, the Paratilapia cichlid, that one that's just black and it's got little spanglings all over it. That fish is a true crepuscular fish, and it wakes up earlier than all the other fish, and that's when it hunts. And its main trait is like the Madagascar rainbow fish. So like I always see people saying, "Oh, I want to set up a biotope tank, and I want to have that and the rainbows." I'm like, "Yeah, that'll work out real well." You'll never see them disappear. Your fish will just vanish.
A few days, jeez, yeah. It'd be pretty brutal tank. It wouldn't last too long.
I haven't kept when they shut that down. Like the pikes were all the rage. I'm going to say this is the mid '90s. They were all the rage by certain people. And then Brazil shut all the stuff down. And if it wasn't on the Brazil's positive list, or if it wasn't described, you couldn't get it. And it just disappeared from the hobby entirely. So I don't know. All right. So when you had when was the 2000 completed? What year was that completed? How many years have you had that?
This past March would have been 4 years.
Okay.
2017, 18, 19.
4 years.
Yeah.
How many people are here? There's 48 people here. You guys suck. Why is there only 48 people? Go get more people. But You what?
I posted this on Instagram, but it takes a while to my story.
So it was 2000. It was completed, right? So I've been told, a little bird came and told me that a promise was made that we were all expecting you to be in a Little Mermaid costume with a coconut bikini top, frolicking in the aquarium. When shall we expect to see this, Ariel?
Oh man! So those days are so much different. Somebody sent me a mermaid costume, and then somebody else sent me coconut shell bikini because I used to do unboxings and stuff on my channel. I'd include it here and there, like fan mail and stuff. Maybe I should bring that back because people still send things. I think I said something like when we hit 200,000 or 500. I don't know what number it was.
I think
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember what the deal was, but there's been worse things that I challenged everybody to, and it never happened. Like jumping in the pond in the winter. I did not want to do that. So they didn't. I think they were supposed to get like 30,000, 50,000 likes or something, and it didn't get to it in time. So that was at
Rusty Wessel's house in Louisville, Kentucky in November or January one year, and it was snowing, and they were freaking out because I was wandering around doing videos in the fish house and his ponds in bare feet. I was just wandering around. I went swimming in their pond in mid-November. It was damn cold, I won't lie.
Was it Louisville, yeah? Or Kentucky?
Yeah.
Man, it gets hot there. That's the hottest place, the most uncomfortable place I've been for their humidity and the heat at the same time in the summer. The ACA I went to that year, it was just so hot.
So I was thinking about this, when people told me about this promise that was made, I thought, as a means of amend, you could shoot a video of you in your Little Mermaid costume, and you'd have your coconut bikini top. And I thought, just because you've been so delinquent in providing said video, that if you could maybe sing a few bars of Under the Sea, that would I think everybody would like that. I think that would be one of your best viewed videos.
Maybe. I think that's probably not going to happen. But I think that I would like to get into the 2000 and kind of swim around with the fish and stuff. Oh, it's not big enough to swim in, but you can kind of like waddle around in there.
I'll give you one props. I'll tell you, you would look a hell of a lot better doing it in your Little Mermaid costume. But I'm sure you already have, because you said you have. You've gotten one already. Because you look like you go to the gym and you work out and you're young still. Versus someone like me, pasty that looks like a diseased manatee wearing a set. So I think it's a better option if you do it.
So the problem with that mermaid outfit, it was too small and way too tight, and maybe that was the point. But like it was like sort of see-through and stuff, and it was just I couldn't make it work.
Okay. Well, Big Rich is in the house here. I can see him here. He's saying, "Come on, Joey, fans want to see it." Okay, well, Big Rich, if I can get down there in, I think it's November this year, or whenever next time I can come down, we have to get Biggs a long curly red-haired wig, a mermaid costume, and a coconut bikini top, and Biggs will go in the predator pond with his mesh shorts. Feeding.
I think he would do it anyway. That guy's crazy. He's got a few screws missing is what he's got going on. He'll just get in it for fun. He doesn't even need camera rolling. Yeah, it's all right. So I would swim in that pond, but those alligator gars, I mean, I don't know. I think I saw an alligator gar in a video I was in my recommended, and who swam in that? I think it was his son or something swam in. I don't remember who. Yeah. I don't know. It might.
Oh, you mean at Predator?
No, I think it was an albino alligator gar. And there's no way I get in that pond with that.
Rich has he has platinum gar, an alligator gar, I think it is, or whichever. No, but he has an alligator gar that when I was there, and you got to remember that's 2 years now since I've been there, November, and I'm going to say it was at least 5 feet then. And that thing was the most inquisitive fish in the entire pond at the time. Between him coming up, like when you're floating around and you're doing your thing with your GoPro and stuff like that, He's right here. Like, and he's right there, and his head's like this big. And it's just,
and they're not a fish that bite like this. They'll come at you sideways, like try to get you like that, and they're an ambush. So I'd probably be the same size as it. I'm not a big person, so it would probably view me as like, something that Rich feeds it. So there's no way I would. Well, maybe I would. Maybe I get in there with a stick or something, keep it away from me.
But if you were to go on a city bus right now, and you're sitting, would your feet touch the ground?
Depends. I'm not that small. Like, I could probably be a hobbit in the Lord of the Rings. Rich is a big boy. He's tall.
The road, go get me some treats.
Well, how tall are you?
6'3". I'm probably only 6'2" now, though. I'm getting older.
Yeah, spine's compressing. Plus, it's getting later in the day. Are you taller than Rich?
No. Rich is a giant. He looks like a wrestler.
That's true. He looks like what's his name? Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Well, I wouldn't want to mess with him.
No, he's a big boy.
All right, so you've done so many builds over the years. Now, if you weren't in the public eye whatsoever, and you and me were just, fish keepers, you lived in wherever the hell you live, and I live wherever the hell I live and stuff, and we're just passionate, random fish keepers. There's no internet. There's nothing like that. Do you have a favorite style of aquarium? Something that, this is what I actually love doing the best. If you could only keep one tank, would it be something like a Riff Lake cichlid aquarium or a planted aquarium? Or obviously it's not going to be a reef aquarium. We cleared that up. Or would you go more the SpongeBob ornaments and rainbow gravel?
Well, I've done the rainbow gravel, but that was a long time ago. My favorite type of aquarium, and you're not going to like it, would be a bare bottom tank with stingrays and Asian arowana. My 700 is probably my favorite tank. Yep. Over the 2000. Like, I appreciate the 2000. I really, really, really I love it, but I like stingrays more. And, I guess it would be, you could put them in a escaped aquarium and et cetera, but, I'm really pushed to get these guys to breeding this year. I wanted to last year. What's that?
Breeding fish. Like I kept, I've gone from, 30 tanks or, couple hundred tanks and stuff. Didn't really matter the volume or the number, but I do, I will attest that, when you're breeding fish on a large scale, bare bottom tanks, hydro sponges or their equivalent, you couldn't beat that for maintaining large volumes. The minute you add substrate and all those other things, they become traps for detritus and waste products and stuff. So then your keep is a lot more. So for something like stingrays, which are more sensitive to that bottom disc, you got to maintain your water quality. Like the trap out.
Yeah, and I mean, when you got to have such a massive tank like that, and gravel vacuuming and whatnot isn't all that practical in 50 square feet. It's a lot different when you get like a 30-gallon tank. And you're like, why don't you have substrate? It's so much nicer looking. It's just too much. It's just so much to, what if? There's too many variables there that I'm not entirely too comfortable with. But I guess it does make it easier. Well, the argument for a lot of people that, are not that well informed about stingrays is, don't they need it? Didn't they evolve over millions of years to be able to kind of go under the substrate and whatnot? And simple answer is but just because, that's what they've evolved to be able to do doesn't mean that that's the best for them in a captive environment.
True. Yep.
Yeah.
And that was also a defense mechanism, a way of hiding from things.
Yeah.
If they
just have their eyes up.
They would never do that.
Right? Yeah.
I've only ever kept one type of stingray, and I was successful in breeding them. But the problem I had is I only had that one 750-gallon aquarium. And how it happened is we were helping Spencer unload an order years and years and years ago. And he got some nice small ones in, and memory escapes me, but I know that the Matoro stingray, depending on where it comes from, can mean you can get a 30-inch stingray or you can get a 5-foot stingray. Each depending on which region they came from, and either these were from Peru or Colombia, I can't remember, but they stayed in that normal kind of 30-inch range, which to most any aquarium, as you know, is massive still.
It's huge. Yeah. It's huge. It's very big. Yeah.
How I got other ones was in my route of doing all my customers. One of the pet stores in actually Saskatoon had these large touch tanks. And the large touch tanks were at a level that kids could, unattended children could reach into these tanks. Now that's okay if it's, like a community tank or fancy goldfish or koi or something. But I don't think I want having stingrays in those environments. And I literally got 2 stingrays. They wanted them out of the store ASAP. As soon as I phoned the head office and told them about what the store had there, they wanted them gone. And I brought them both home. But I had one that I had to ship home, and it was the size of a trash can lid. And she grew to be, I think it was 30 or 32 inches in size. But as soon as the males sexed out, they sexed out and they were ready, they were relentless. And that's why why public aquariums, you never see males in any displays, because otherwise you can't control the breeding.
Interesting. Well, when I go and see, maybe it's like sharks and whatnot I don't know if I see sharks. I see male sharks in public aquariums, males and females. I've never actually, maybe I've seen, I'm not sure what I've seen for female or male stingrays, but they're all in the same family, the elasmo branch.
Yeah.
So
have you kept them together though, males and females long term in the ones that you've had?
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Never a problem?
So there's 2 sides to that debate on whether you could keep them together long term when they become sexually mature. Some breeders will say 1 male, 1 female. That's all you need. I like to have 1 male, 2 females. So the aggression is diffused amongst the 2, because it's a stingray breeding is incredibly violent, and if the female isn't submissive, she's going to get beat up, chunks missing, and that's just what happens. And they are relentless. But it made me think, there's probably other fish and other aquatic animals that are quite violent in their breeding process. Of course, lip locking and whatnot. But I had a fish in mind that is violent. I can't think of them anymore. Do you know of any other fish or aquatic animals to that extent that are violent in their breeding?
Well, a lot of the cichlids are violent like that. But, to see the carnage that I saw with the stingrays, it was almost unseen. Aquarius catfish, the walking catfish from Africa, when I bred them, I walked in on it happening, and the female looked like she was just getting shredded. Like her fins were all tattered. But that's because the male would grab her by her tail and force her into this swimming circle. And he just held onto her and just kept pushing her. And she was just tattered. But the pair bond never broke up. But with the stingrays, what happened with me with the stingrays, it's still an 8-foot by 4-foot tank. So I'm not, it's definitely not gigantic, but it's
that's the ideal size, in my opinion.
But the female, the big one, that was the biggest stingray I'd ever had by far. I'd only ever kept those 4. But the males were only maybe dinner plate size.
Yeah.
And she was 32 inches in size.
Yeah.
And maybe she just wasn't receptive, or he wasn't able to because of his size. I don't know. I can't comment because I didn't expect to breed him. These were all kind of like rescues. Yeah. But I came down one morning and she was at the surface of the aquarium and big bites out of all of her disc. And when where I was, there's nowhere I could take that fish. There's nothing I could do.
It's interesting. There's a few points there, but for those that don't know, what we're talking about is when the male wants to breed, he'll bite the female to get her to lift up, and so he can get under her and impregnate her. Sometimes he'll try to flip her over if he's strong enough, but it's always ideal to have a bigger female than the male so she doesn't take such a beating. But again, that might even be debatable because he as you experienced, she got beat up even worse for him just trying.
I eventually lost her, and because I felt so bad about it. I actually was great bringing in horse troughs and setting up horse troughs on the floor and I got the males out, but I still eventually lost her over that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you lost her over the damage or maybe secondary infection or something, but I would suspect it would have been from stress, because I don't know if the female can even feel that, or when the rays do lose some of their disc, do they even feel it? Because it can be regenerated.
Yeah.
And it's just their pectoral fins technically.
And if the disc regenerates, Am I correct in assuming that it doesn't grow back the same way? It'll look different. Is it like the way a gecko lizard tail grows back? It's not the same
It's
color.
going to be hit or miss. Sometimes it can be like a little misformed, or most times the spotting will be ruined if it's any sort of spotted stingray.
Okay.
A lot of the times that coloration won't come back. But do you remember when Oliver Lucanis, I believe, he brought in the Bosmani stingray back in 2011 or something like that? Or yeah, it must have been 2011. And that was the first time they were ever imported. I got one of those, and they had some form of a horrible bacterial infection. They didn't know what it was, but it killed off almost all of them, except for what was rumored to just mine was the last one. And the disc mostly grew back, but it looked like it looked really, really distorted. Her spotting that came back with it, it looked like it was like pulled down, almost like distorted looking. Yeah. And she did go on to breed with one of my Motoros, and it was the first time that the Bosmani was bred in captivity.
And you did them in one of your big open tanks, no substrate.
No,
proper stingray breeders do it.
a bare bottom tank. It was a tank I built. It was only 80 inches by 40 inches and 20 inches tall. It wasn't like a common size. I was trying to get as big of a tank as I could out of like 2 sheets of acrylic or something, and that was the best that I could do. But that was a long time ago. I think 2013 maybe.
All right, for this big tank that I'm going to be building here, I've got all my wood. The one thing I haven't even looked at, or even considered, is the front pane. And I've never, ever, as I've told you before, I've never, ever even looked at acrylic for the front pane. I don't know how to bond the acrylic to it. I'm sure there's some YouTube guy could watch a video of how to do this, but how do you bond the acrylic to the wood to the epoxy finish? I wouldn't have a clue. Would you recommend that as better option than, say, glass?
I like it because with a plywood aquarium, if you're not perfect with your cuts, there's going to be bowing and flexing anyways. And with glass doesn't allow for bowing and flexing. So glass fronts more commonly leak than acrylic fronts. Acrylic can move around with it if it needs to, but for bonding, I just sand where it's going to be bonded and use aquarium silicone and put it in, because all the pressure of the water is going to push against it anyway. The silicone just acts like a seal, as opposed to any sort of structural integrity. It'll hold the panel up. But once it's cured, you're probably not getting it off, especially if you sand it really well. I just use a palm sander, just a couple seconds, and that's it. That's what I did for the 2000. Those are acrylic panels, 1.6 inches thick.
Well, I'm tossing around the ideas, and nobody else even knows about this. I've built big tanks over the years, many big tanks and stuff, but for this one big tank, this is kind of my last one, because I told my wife, if we ever have to move again, we've only got one move left, and that's in the ground. So not doing this again. And we built the entire basement around this space. So it's a 12-foot by 6-foot front to back space. And then height is whatever it wants to be. But the one thing I want to do is I'm debating the idea of doing one of the short sides and the long side as one glass piece. Now, if I were to do glass, I would do 2 separate windows. But if I did acrylic and the right thickness acrylic, which I don't know how, I've never looked at, I could do it as one seamless thing.
Yeah.
Never looked at it yet, but that's one idea. Down the road,
you can do it with glass as well. I mean, I think you could do it with glass and just silicone the panels together. Are you talking the corners? Like there's the front panel, and then you're talking you could do glass or acrylic. Maybe do acrylic. I guess you could bend it, but if you don't have like a walk-in oven, you're probably not going to be able to bend it properly.
I remember being in Dallas, and they took us to. I can't remember what we were there for. We were there probably for a fish convention, and we went to that Houston Aquarium, I think it's called, or whatever. It's like an over-the-top shop, and the guy that owns that store, Jay Wilson's been there many times. It's in his territory. The guy that owns that store also owns this fabrication place, and this fabrication place is like 10 times the size of what those guys on that show used to do. And when we were there, they were building this wooden frame, and they were building an aquarium for an NBA star. And I think the front glass was 32 feet by 12 feet. And they had to build basically Tony Hawk's
Yeah,
frame
for the form.
Heat this thing on. It was insane. And I ended up seeing that finished tank and whatever stars place it was on a video somewhere. And I was like, hey, I remember that. But it was monstrous. The acrylic was like 4 or 5 inches thick.
That's big money. Those big sheets of acrylic, huge money. Yeah, I think that you might enjoy having an acrylic panel a little bit more besides like the scratches and whatnot, but those can be buffed out. It's just easier to work with. It's lighter. You know, you don't gotta, it's basically, well, depending on the thickness you get, it's essentially bulletproof. You're not going to worry if like you fall into it or, I mean, I can go outside and throw bricks at my tank and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. I know the big tank, when I had it before, I think I overbought the glass because I was just before we were having kids, and I didn't want to, you know, if I had all girls, so I didn't have any menace men or menace boy kids, you know, sitting there smashing a car or a Tonka truck on the glass. But that's what I overbuilt it for that purpose. I didn't want a child to sit there and go and smash the glass with something when I'm not there, and the whole tank comes out at them, right?
That's a lot of the times if I'm building a tank, I'll always go like the next thickness up, as long as it's kind of still within the budget.
Yeah.
You know, so yours is going to be 12 feet by 6 feet?
12 by 6 front to back. Yeah.
That's a big tank. And you're thinking 3 feet? I can't remember what your original.
3 feet. To me, if the minute I go above 3 feet, one, it changes the dynamic of the glass because of the pressure.
Yeah.
But two was also it changes the dynamic of the viewing space. It's like getting an old school TV to a widescreen TV. You know, it's the way the image that picture window looks. You know, I know your tank. You know, you built it, and your tank is, how long is your tank? 8?
10 feet.
Oh, so it's 10, but yours is like 4 feet tall, right?
4 tall, yeah.
So, you know, I go to these public aquariums, I see these monstrous tanks, and they take up monstrous space. I'm like, well, I got this space, and it's basically 12 by 6. The tank's going to be about 3.5 inches, 4 inches shorter than 12 feet because you want to build walls entirely encase the whole thing. But I'm going to be 6 feet front to back. I've only ever done a 4-foot front to back tank before. Doing a 6 foot, it's just, I have to double laminate the sheets anyway. So double laminating the sheets and adding 2 feet, it's not a lot of extra wood to go that extra distance, because you're going to laminate the first one top and then the bottom one will be at the back. So it's easy to do it. You know that. But I think 3 tank. And the filtration will be like a wet dry type of filtration that I've always done before. The one thing I am doing different than any tank I'm doing is I'm raising this tank up off the ground on a real, I'll probably do like 6x6 stands, like a 6x6 timber stand, and I'll probably actually pour little tiny concrete piles or pads, so it distributes the weight a little bit more instead of just directly on that one spot.
I did a 540-gallon tank that was 6 feet by 6 feet, and since I didn't need it far off the ground, I used cinder blocks, and it worked really well. I needed a lot of them, but I mean, I built it in 20 minutes, like just placed them. I
had the cinder blocks in my old place, and that's what the stand was for the old tank. And I remember it was a long story, but my grandfather had passed away. We all got a little bit of money to do something, and the one thing I wanted to do in my basement was to have a snooker table. Well, to accommodate a snooker table in my basement at the time at our old place, the fish tank had to move, and it had to move back almost 5 feet. It's a 750-gallon aquarium, but like you moving that 500 or whatever acrylic tank by yourself, I moved that 750-gallon tank by myself. It took an entire day. But I would get the jack and lift one side up and take one cinder block out, put it on the ground, take one cinder block, put on, and then let it tip over. And then I take cinder blocks on the other side.
It can be done.
All the way down.
Yeah, it can be done. It does take the entire day. And before you know it, you're just dripping in sweat. It's horrible.
Well, the idea of doing the cinder blocks again at my age now, like I had cinder blocks using cinder block stands just for one, I think it was 120-gallon planted tank in the basement. So there might have been like a dozen of them. Having to haul those all the way upstairs again and outside once.
Yeah, that's a downside. Those are the things nobody really talks about when thinking about having a big tank or building a huge one, is material, like relocating it, just getting it into your truck, or going to buy it, getting it in. That's a whole day of just bringing it all home.
And you're all excited and you're all pumped up because you want to do it. When you change your mind, like say you got completely out of fish and you want it gone, oh, does that job suck?
Well, I had to get rid of the corner plywood tank that I literally just built. And the only way to get it, yeah, that's no longer there. The only way for me, the Oscars were supposed to go to the new building and have their own tank. Now they're outside now. They've been out there for a while, and they'll have their own tank here. Most of what I was going to do at the new building, I'm doing here now. I mean, I just got to build bigger racks and use the space more efficiently, and it's well on its way. I've made it so that I can more than double the amount of aquariums out there with bigger aquariums. So it's
the aquarium I've already ordered and paid for.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
What are you planning on doing with all the other aquariums that you bought and paid for?
They're being used too. I mean, for the most part, most will be used. Other ones that I don't have the space for, I'll either store, most likely store them, and wait until I need them, type of thing. I already have a storage that I put tanks in all the time anyway. So.
Okay.
But the corner Oscar aquarium, that plywood tank, the only way for me to get that out of the basement was to cut it in half. And some people said, why don't you cut it in half and put it back together somewhere else? And I'm like, you shouldn't really do that with a plywood tank. I mean, once it's been cut in half, the integrity of it's just entirely destroyed. And in order for me to get it to stay together, I mean, I would have to wrap it in 2x4s or something just to help strengthen it all over again. But
well, I love watching all the people that you and me have talked about plywood tanks for years and stuff like that. I watch all these forums back in the day and all these things, people talking about, oh, you better use stainless steel screws. And I'm like, if you need to use stainless steel screws, you're overthinking the problem, because the screws should never get wet.
yeah.
I remember the last one that I built. I always love tinkering and playing with things. And for the bottom of the tanks and the sides that I laminated, I used polyurethane glue. You ever use polyurethane glue? It's a riot.
Polyurethane glue.
It's like working with Aunt Jemima corn syrup.
Oh, like almost like a fiberglass resin.
Yeah, no, it looks like that. It looks like sap. You get your 2 sheets of plywood, and you better map out what you're doing on the other side with where you're putting screws and everything. And then you put your polyurethane, and you don't have to be anything fancy. You put a little squiggle of polyurethane glue, and then you take a damp cloth and you wipe down the other surface that's going to attach to the polyurethane glue. And then you put them together, clamp them really quick, and then start screwing, because it acts like that expanding foam. So instead of, most people have a glue and it goes like this little up and down squiggle and stuff like that, polyurethane glue will fill the entire thing and laminate the whole sheet together.
Oh, no way.
Awesome. But it's really, really cool to work with, because after that part's done and you let it cure, you just take a putty knife and it just takes off all the extra stuff that came out.
Is it expensive?
No, it's cheap. It's Gorilla Glue. You buy a bottle. You buy a bottle for like $8 at Home Depot.
Oh,
I just came across it by chance. I thought, I want to try this. I've used on some of my builds. I've used I can't even think, but biscuit joiner. And just because you had the tool, you may as well try it. Would it work? Yeah, it'll work. A giant screw will work exactly the same way. It's not going to change one way or the other. But even using that Gorilla Glue, the other thing I did on the last build is when you're putting your front, I always did like the box, and then I did a front frame, and I used like hardwood to make the front frame. So I would biscuit joint the joints of the picture frame. Mm-hmm. So it's all solid wood. And then when I did drilled my little holes and countersunk them, just before I put the screws in, I put the screws in a bucket of water, and then I put a squeeze of Gorilla Glue, this polyurethane glue, into each one of the screw holes. Because if you may not have, I've never had personally, but I've known many people have had blowouts of a plywood tank because somehow water got to the screws, and it basically
and it released it.
And then all the screws just popped out all at once, right? And I've heard of that happening. But with this one, with putting that polyurethane glue in each one of them, it's like putting spray foam into the hole. So now it bonds not only with the screw, but also the wood in every pore. I just thought it was super cool. And it didn't really cost anything, but it was fun to do.
Yeah, no, I've never had a a plywood tank fail on me. I've had an acrylic tank blow apart while I was.
A seam didn't break though, did it?
Yeah, the seam is what let go. It was the seam wasn't done really well, and it was like, I don't know. I was getting ready for bed. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I had discus and stingrays in this holding tank, and I noticed that on the edge it was a little white, which indicated to me like the seam was kind of coming apart. It needed a little cement put there, and I wasn't thinking the cement was right there, so I grabbed it and kind of put it in the seam, and all that did was soften the entire seam, and I watched it slowly just release, and then went pop. So I had to stand there holding the tank, the panel on as good as I could. Well, I had my wife go upstairs and grab clamps. I was screaming for her. Like, she couldn't even hear me because we have drop ceilings, but eventually she came down. I clamped it and I fixed everything, but that was the worst. I was just tired. I knew that I should have done that, but I don't know why I did it.
I really thought about that. That's right, because like acrylic, when you bond acrylic, you're actually melting. The glue actually is melting the acrylic, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you did by adding the glue in. You melted what you'd already adhered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, if there's any like, oil or, even oil from your hands, or, the seam wasn't properly prepared or not, it can still hold water, but eventually it might just pop apart. Maybe, and that was like in the corner. I could imagine that when I was placing it down, I might have had my finger must have touched it, and that's where that seam was coming apart. So that sucked, but.
That's scary, especially the volume and knowing what fish are in it. Like, you think about all your followers and stuff like that. They follow and they do that. And they go build this thing. This is my dream tank. And they just make one little tiny mistake, and that's what could cost it, right?
Yeah.
It's to all of us too, right? It happens to anybody. If you're doing it 20 years or you're doing it once, it can happen to anybody, right?
Yeah, it sucks.
Got a couple more questions. Very specific stuff.
All right.
It's your last meal. What does the DIY king want to eat?
My last meal? Do I know it's my last meal? Like, am I in death row? I would say, oh man, I would just get pizza. I really like pizza.
There you go. That's it.
Pizza. I'd probably get pizza and beer.
I give him that's a good answer. I'll give him that. That's good. Okay, you're at the spa, because you strike me as the type that goes to the spa. You and your shiny skin and your perfect hair.
My shiny skin.
And all the spa fish have ick. So you have to choose an alternative species for your treatment out of the following list. They got tiger barbs. They got a clown trigger. They got a gooch catfish. They got kissing Grammys. Which one?
For what? Why am I picking one of these? Because my fish have ick?
No, the spa fish. You're at the spa, like you go to regularly.
Oh, you get the doctor fish, the Gararufa.
Yeah, those fish are all sick. So those are not on the menu.
Oh, you get an alternative. Well, I think the closest thing to that would definitely be the tiger barbs. When I was in the tank with the tiger barbs, they were nipping at me the entire time. I think the funner one, if I was allowed to film, I'd probably do the catfish and see if it would eat my foot or something, swallow my whole foot. What else? What was the other ones? A clown knife?
Crown trigger. Crown trigger would work really good for my calluses and stuff like that. You just, you show your hands and just soften, because you got baby soft hands probably. You probably use
clown trigger? Like a saltwater clown trigger? I would let them. They could take your finger off, I think. I mean,
they're just cute. They're all just show.
Trim my nails. Triggerfish, yeah. Them big old jaws on them. I don't think they do that. I'd probably stick to the tiger barbs.
Yeah. You probably use moisturizer.
I do.
My wife always bugs me. She says, "Why can't you just use moisturizer?" I don't know, because I can't. There's like a rule. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have sensitive skin, so if I even use a certain soaps on my skin, I just break out. I don't know. I must have teenager hormones or something, but
I'll let that one pass. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let that one go by quietly. Okay, so if you could reflect back on your 12 to 13 years, it's 13, 14 years now, isn't it? 14 years?
On YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. Of doing YouTube, can you choose one of your absolute favorite videos you've done? If you could narrow it down to one specific video.
Yeah. I don't necessarily have a guaranteed favorite because I used to, and then I just started watching that time frame of when I was making videos, and those were my favorite. That was my favorite time frame of my video creating. And some people will notice that my videos have changed over the years, and you have to understand that after you've been on camera for 10 to 13 years, you're changing as a person. Your experiences are changing. You're going to talk different. You're going to look different, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my favorite time frame was probably like 2017, 2018. One of my favorite videos from that time was when the sharks hatched. I really enjoyed that video.
Cool. I would have thought it would have been like, those awkward years in your beginnings when you did that, 10-minute montage of how to orally start an aquarium siphon. With that weird 70s music in the background.
That was from the YouTube music library. That's what was available. And then I started paying for music, and I kept getting copyright strikes and demonetized and stuff. So I just I'm just not going to use music anymore because, I didn't think I wasn't good at picking the music anyway.
I pick what I like, and that's it. If people don't like it, I'm like, I don't know what else to do. All these guys got like rocking channels and stuff. I'm like, all right, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I would say spring 2018 was my favorite time of my videos. That little time frame. That's about as close as I can get to picking my favorite.
That's why we got to go back. We got to go back and start there again.
Yeah.
The process. Go back and start there again and work your way up.
Well, I watch those and I'm like, and I see some of those videos, and not to sound too arrogant, but I was like, man, those videos are really good. I wish I could make videos like that. And it was me. I don't know who that guy was. I don't think I could do that again. So you
sit in the mirror every day and you talk to yourself. You're a wonderful person. You're gonna have a great day today. You're beautiful. People love you.
Yeah. Now, the last couple of years, I guess, there's been 2-3 years have been I've had a lot of changes in my life, in my personal life and stuff, and it simply has taken my focus and somewhat I'm finding like so many things are trying to suck the passion out of me, and it's been hard to just like put my head down and focus, and I'm getting back to that though, and
that's the reality of it though. It's like you've been doing it for so long, as much as people say they do, the bulk of the people out there, they just want the videos. Just keep putting out the videos. I don't care if you're in a car accident. Where's my video? You see, you always come out on Tuesday. Like, oh, your mouth wide. Oh well, where's my video? Like that's really but that's not necessarily you. That's just society now. Like to me, if I could film videos of me getting bitten by an alligator or falling down the stairs carrying an aquarium, those are the videos that would thrive and rise me. But
you never know when a video is going to do super well. That's the thing. I mean, I think that if I'm personally really excited about a video, that translates well. But when it comes to taking breaks from YouTube themselves says it's okay. Like a lot of creators are worried that if they take a break, they're going to get knocked out of the algorithm. People are going to forget about them, etc. And YouTube has said that they don't see any evidence of that. So it's okay to take a break. If you need to take a few weeks off, some people take a month off.
Always telling me I shouldn't be doing videos right now and I should be taking a break.
Well, you can't. Everybody worries, because you put so much time, especially even yourself. I mean, I think you've been at this for at least a year or two.
Over 2.
Yeah, more than 2 years of nonstop work, and it would really suck to just walk away from it. But you do need a break. I'm not saying just you specifically, but lots of people do need a break, vacation type of deal. But when it comes to this, a lot of creators are just scared because, some of them, that's how they pay their bills, or they're worried. Or
fun. I'm just having fun every day. I don't. To me, if the channel grows by 1 subscriber a week, hey, that's is what it is. To me, I'm still having fun. The minute I stop having fun, though, I'm out.
Yeah, that's me. That's wrong.
It doesn't. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It doesn't matter if I'm making $100 a month or I'm making 20,000 a month. It doesn't make a difference to me if you're not having fun doing it. And it's the same thing I view people actually working actual jobs. If you're not having fun in your job, change it. Right? Whatever you're going to do, make it better. Nobody should live like that, in my opinion.
Well, I think this is the longest I've ever done anything. With YouTube and especially fish keeping. I guess I've been a father longer than I kept fish. No, I kept fish longer than I was a dad. Yeah, I kept fish for about 20 years now. My daughter's only 16 in a few months, so yeah, I guess this is the longest thing I've ever done.
Somebody mentioned something in the chat about you almost cut your finger off or something.
Oh yeah, I've got stories. I'd be able to tell the stories a little bit better if I wasn't so freaking hungover from last night. I really regret doing that with my buddy.
There were a lot of talk yesterday morning. Yesterday morning.
Yeah. It was all last night, yesterday or something like that. Yeah.
He was talking. It was going to basically be like a scene out of the 40-year-old version where those two guys are just bantering back and forth with each other. We were all prepared. I actually didn't prepare. I actually wrote down a few of the questions.
Yeah. Well, he came home and I hadn't seen him for a couple of years, and this was one of the only days we were able to kind of match up, and one thing led to another. But yeah, I've definitely got stories of like problems. I was taking apart the 540-gallon tank, and I don't remember specifically what happened, but somehow the glass was broken. And the full panel that was 6 feet long and 2 feet high, so it must have weighed like 60 pounds or something. It came down on my finger, boom, right on my knuckle. I looked at it, and it looked like a big dent or maybe just a line. And then I went and closed my fist, and everything opened up. So I went upstairs, and I was rinsing it, and I can hear pieces of my bones tingling into the sink, into the porcelain sink, like it going ting, 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 ting. I was like, oh, shoot. And every time I would go like this, the tendons would come out of my finger like a snake tongue. So I went to
maybe this is bad.
Well, I went into shock. And you don't know you're going into shock until it's not like it's too late, but I've been in shock before because I broke my wrist. I'm always hurt. So I knew what was happening. And I had called, I thought it was worse. Like I thought my finger was literally going to fall off. So I had an ambulance coming, and they're like, don't let him have anything sweet or sugary. And I was like, it's literally exactly what I needed. And as soon as I had a drink of I think I had Gatorade or something, everything was fine. Went to the hospital. They sewed me up. He's like, this is just going to get you by until tomorrow when we can do reconstructive surgery. He's like, you might lose this finger. I think two, 3 surgeries later, it went back to normal. And it's 100% normal. There's lumps and stuff.
All my hands are totally like that. Like this finger doesn't even go the right direction.
Yeah, I can't speak to some of them, but it's the first time I listened to the rehabilitation person that showed me exercises and stuff, because I didn't do it with this finger when I broke my whole hand. So that finger will never go straight again. My wrist only has half the strength it used to, because I didn't listen. And because I was like, oh, I'm invincible. I was like 19, 20 when I broke that, and maybe 17 when I broke my hands. The wall won. And I just didn't listen to
this is aquarium keeping, guys. We'll show up all our scars and mangled hands.
And but this time I listened, and it just went back to normal. So moral of the story is if you do get hurt and you're able to get rehab or anything, do what they say, because you can bring yourself back to almost normal.
How many times have you been electrocuted by aquarium equipment?
Oh, just recently, a few days ago, I was trying out these new heaters. It was an 800-watt heater, and I noticed that the Stingrays were acting weird and the arowana was like laying on the floor of the tank. And I was like, "What's your problem?" And I opened the tank, and I always think there's electrical problems. And I touched the tank, and nothing happened. So I figured there's no electrical current in there, but I was grounded. But it was when I went to unplug the heater from the wall, that's when I got a bit of a jolt. But it happens all the time. I mean, I'm always getting electrocuted because I'll be soaked with my hands, or drenched, playing around with the tanks and doing stuff, and then I'll unplug something, not thinking, and zzz, gets a little sad.
Wheel for your big tank. They are lots of fun. I can tell you, they're good.
I don't think I would probably get one of them, but
I had a big one stop my heart. Not good. Not a good time. I wouldn't recommend.
No.
Your whole aquarium gal, you have a ground fault interrupter plug.
Yeah, it's all GFCIs, and I'm not really worried about anything. I mean, I've had ankle deep water out there with floods, and nothing happened. I tripped a few things here and there, but my problem is overloading the circuit. Sometimes, like, some of the plugs are only 15 amps, which can only really support maybe about 1,700 watts, and I'll put in 2,000-3,000 watts and it just trips it. So it's not that big of a deal. I do that all the time though.
I deal with that too at home, like trying to get power. Right now, we're at the situation where we want to trench all the way out to the farm, trench water and electrical, because every day in the winter, this is where I get the respect. Or actually, no, correctly, my wife should get the respect because I travel most of the time. But every single day in the winter, twice a day, in the morning and in the night, she has to haul 5-gallon pails, 2 at a time, about 350 feet to the water troughs out on the farm. And sometimes she has to do that twice each time because the animals need water in the winter, right? So I had to run power, but we weren't ready to trench out there because if I trench all the way out there, I'm literally just going to have a 2x4 sticking out of the ground with power. Would it work? Yes, but then I'd have to trench again to run water for the following year. And when you trench water out there, you actually have to have a spot to put water. You can't just let water come out of the ground, a pipe come out of the ground in the middle of winter. So we want to build a building, but then lumber prices keep skyrocketing. So, we want to build a little building, insulate it really well, bring power and water to it. But having to carry 5-gallon pails, 2 at a time, twice a day, that gives you a bit of stuff.
Yeah, I think it'll be worth it. I think that wood prices, and even, I don't know what the housing market is right there, but it's going crazy here. They say it's not going to really go back to normal for a couple more years.
Not until people stop buying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In Atlantic, Canada, we're getting a tremendous amount of, well, not right now, but right before the virus and whatnot, we took in a lot, tens of thousands of immigrants, and that's also contributing to like housing prices and stuff, but there's so much space here. Like Nova Scotia doesn't even have 1 million people. So, I mean, I think we could double the population here easily and still be fine. So I don't really care if a bunch of people come, but it is definitely a lot of things contribute.
I'd like us as a society to ever get to the point. You're too young to remember the show Happy Days, but I grew up watching that show Happy Days. It took place in like the 50s. It wasn't in the 50s. I was born in 70. But that show was, it was like a better time. It took place in a small town in the U.S. and the U.S. made everything, and Canada could make everything. And the few things that we could not make, well, then you strike up a partnership deal with whatever country can manufacture that product or that ingredient, and then you trade back and forth. But the entire globe, depending on a couple of countries, and they're borderline, I don't want to say the word, but it's borderline a slave workforce, for the price that they're getting paid for these commodities. It's not working. Well, China and Brazil will be the same. Brazil's another superpower that's growing really fast. Malaysia, really? All these countries, we depend on these countries for all our garbage. And what I mean by garbage is all these consumable products that we incessantly need constantly. We're consumers. North America, we just want more and more and more all the time. Whoever dies with the most garbage wins. That's the motto here.
Yeah. I love my
You've been to the UK when you did that thing with George. You know, when you go over there, the population density there versus where you come from is crazy. But the thing that people, to take it into perspective, is over there, there's no extra land. When you look at the UK geographically is probably about the same size as Manitoba.
Yeah, it's not that big.
You know what I mean? And like, there's no extra land. So in Europe, they're very, very conscious about the manufacturing of any product. Everything want to be everything manufactured to a different standard. And over there, if you have an aquarium, that you could buy an aquarium here for say $700 with all the amenities and stuff. Over there, you're going to pay 2 or 3 times the price for it. But the products that you're going to be getting with it are much better quality and they'll last longer. Here, you buy most of the filters made in North America. No disrespect to the manufacturers, they're meeting the need of what the people want. The stuff's garbage. It just is. Do you agree?
I think some of the best aquarium products are made in Germany.
Yes, European products. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really know who's. Well, there's a few companies that are. I don't know where they're. Yes. So Ecotech makes a good product, and I think they make all their stuff in Pennsylvania or New York State. One of them. There's a few, but majority is definitely overseas.
Well, I wasn't knocking a U.S. company manufacturing in U.S. I'm talking about North American companies manufacturing products as absolutely cheap as possible in any third world country, just to be able to meet the need.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a few. I know what you mean now. Yeah, there's a few that come to mind for sure. Cheap plastic, you know, it just damn near crumbling apart in your hands when you're unboxing it. And I wonder if I'm thinking of the same company that you're thinking of, because I'm pretty sure I know who it is, but I won't say it. I'm not. I would say it if this was my live stream. Or no, well, you work within the industry, so I don't want to burn any bridges for you. But I wonder,
are you old enough to have ever used an under gravel filter?
I remember them being available and sold and seeing them, but my first filter was an internal box filter, like a corner bubbler. You know, so it was right after probably the under gravel filters.
No, they were actually before. They were before. The old corner box filters, those been around since like the 50s and stuff. You've been to Jason's club, Jason Ambrosio in North Jersey. Have you spoken there?
No.
North Jersey Club has a big.
Oh yes, I did. Just online though, like through the internet because I couldn't travel.
But if you ever get the chance to go there, that's where Rosario Lacorte is. Rosario wrote a book. I don't know Rosario's age, but he's been keeping fish. Like, the stories in his book are absolutely incredible. He's one of the original pioneers for breeding a lot of these very common fish that are in the trade that just aren't bred. Cardinal tetras, the guy bred them. But you got to give a nod of respect. You think back, you know, before you or I were even here, and the people that were the pioneers keeping fish, what was the biggest aquarium that they could ever get? Probably a 10, maybe a 20-gallon tank, right? Like, it just was unheard of.
Those steel frame tanks weren't very big. 5, 10. I've never seen a 20 that. Maybe a 20 would have been huge for them, yeah.
But think about the fish that were bred in those tanks. So all the barbs, all the tetras, all that bread and butter stuff, every gourami, all that stuff was all bred, because the best that they would have would have been like a box filter.
Yeah.
And these guys bred them by using, you know, some of them didn't even have running water into their homes. So they would collect rainwater, and there was not really there was no fish foods made then. So they would have to collect mosquito larvae and things like that and make their own things. Some of them didn't even have a fridge or a freezer. So, like, I can't even fathom how some of these things happened. But the thing that amazes me the most is a lot of those pioneers that bred wild-caught angels. You've dealt with angels for 20 years. So you've had them on and off, many different types, but you've also dealt with wild-caught angels versus pet store angels. And they're two totally different animals, right?
Yeah, same with discus. Yeah, I mean, wild caught versus tank raised are two different fish almost. You know, especially in their husbandry requirements. It's interesting to know all these things, and I know that technology is changing, and we're advancing incredibly, like, rapidly with the technologies in the aquarium hobby. But there's a lot of things that just won't change, which is we will always probably rely on the nitrogen cycle. And, so I think what a lot of people think that the more money they spend on equipment, the better off their fish will be, is something that, I see it specifically in the saltwater side of things. Like the more money you spend, the better your tank will be. And it's almost like a flex. But these people were doing this long before any of this technology was around, and they were successful. And without what they were doing, we wouldn't have a ton of these fish available. Like most of the fish in the hobby these days, a lot of the times are bred in captivity. At one point, even 10 years ago, a lot of fish, you could look at somebody's tank and you could spot like that's wild caught because they're simply not being bred in numbers to sustain the hobby in captivity just yet. So I guess there's a lot to be thankful for there, and a lot like keep things pretty simple. You don't have to be too complicated with this.
But try to imagine yourself. You've bred lots of fish. You've kept everything. You've built big tanks, small tanks. You've done it all. Try and imagine I give you a 10-gallon tank.
Yeah.
Box filter, no running water.
Yeah.
And I want to give you wild convicts, wild Oscars, wild angelfish. What do you think your success rate is going to be breeding these fish? To me, it's going to be 0 or below.
It'd be so much work, but I think that would be part of the fun and part of the challenge. Maybe I should try to, do a tank like that where not allowed to use it. Well, maybe that wouldn't be wise because maybe the fish would die. But I think that the hardest part would be replacing those fish. If they die, how are you supposed to get more? They wouldn't be as commonly available as they are now with our flights and how easy it is to get fish. I could order fish from Peru or, anywhere in the world, and I can probably have them within a week or two. It's not that, well, maybe a little bit longer depending on the fish and the season and whatnot. But, for them, I don't even know how they would have got their fish because in the 40s and 50s, commercial flights weren't that common, were they?
Well, Ross Sokoloff, actually, it's one of the videos that I've got on my, I always have this docket. And I always travel with this giant stack of paper. And these are all my notes of like my random little ideas for what videos I want to do. And I have footage that's probably 3 years old of an interview with a guy about different aspects about Ross Sokoloff. And I have his book sitting in my bag here on the floor. And Ross Sokoloff was one of those original fish farmer pioneers in the early 70s or 60s. And he's the one that invented the styrofoam fish cooler. That people use that, it's just take for granted. It's just, that's what we've always done, right? Prior to that, they used to ship fish in these metal kettles. They were like a metal bucket that tapered up and then it came up and it had a hole in the top. It almost looked like a spittoon. That's how they transported fish back in the day. And the reason that came up was because it's going to slosh around,
yeah.
Make the water a little bit better. But Ross also went and bought an airplane. And he actually would go collect fish, bring them back to Florida, and then fly them up to stores in New York. He would deliver them in a plane.
Oh, wow.
I love the history of it, man. Like all that old stuff, I think is just hilarious how they, but like when talking about those old time guys and how they were doing it, like I just think like you're a long-term guy, I'm a long-term guy, and literally a majority of our people in our audience that are following us right now tonight, there's a lot of real hardcore aquarists out there. And I think that the guys the guys and gals from back in the olden days, I think they just had a more innate understanding or appreciation of nature. Like you said, you'd be fearful about losing those fish if you wanted to do those experiments and try those things. And
I think that's just because I'm complacent and lazy as a fish keeper, because I never thought of not having running water or not having, the equipment and the products that I do have and everything that's so readily acceptable to me. And if something, dies, I can so easily replace it. I guess I never thought about, when people first started doing this with those metal framed aquariums where they don't have running water in certain circumstances, or they're collecting rainwater, collecting food because there is no fish food, or there's probably never a fish store, maybe some places, but it's interesting to think about. And to go from that to where it is today, where darn near every city and every town has a fish store.
Yeah.
And the aquarium hobby is one of the most popular hobbies on the planet. And there's, people like us that can just get on the internet and talk about these things, and droves of people want to watch and, and learn and, or just be involved in some way. Whereas the guys you're talking about, he probably only knew 3-4 people. Like if he was just an average hobbyist, maybe he only knew like 2-3 other people that had fish. Or it's just an interesting thing to see how everything's progressed. Because obviously cats and dogs, we've had them forever for pets, and they're so much easier to keep. But man, what an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, I don't know if I would have kept fish back then.
I find all that old stuff fascinating. The things that they can do. If you ever get a chance to go to North Jersey again, tell Jason, I can help you. I just get you in the background that Jason knows who we're talking about. You definitely want to have a sit down and just listen to this Rosario talk. The stuff that this guy has accomplished is absolutely incredible. He's a absolute living legend. And like this guy's
Have you ever had him on your channel?
I've never had him on my channel. No. Rosario would be in his 90s, I'm sure. But like he still operates his fish room at home. Maybe not on the same scale or same level, but he has a book. It's on Amazon. I don't know. I can't remember the title of it, but you type in Rosario Lacourt, you get his book, and I recommend it to everybody that's in here. It's probably a $10 or $12 book on Amazon. He wrote it himself and he published it himself. But just the stories of all that history, I just find fascinating.
Rosario, what was his last name?
Rosario, Rosario Lacourte. Does it pop up?
Oh, I know him.
Yeah.
I wonder if an Aquarius journey. I wonder if I can't remember if I've ever met him or not. But he looks familiar. I don't remember. Did he write more than one? I think he wrote
saying that he just did a recent podcast. I can't see Rosario doing a podcast, but I don't have any proof one way or the other. But that's awesome because the stories, once that gentleman passes, a lot of those that history and those stories, they're gone forever. Like this guy is an absolute legend in aquatics.
Yeah.
He may be able to actually figure out, this is Cali, super fish nerd. He could figure out StreamYards. Okay, so he was watching the BCACS June meeting. But he's an awesome guy. Like I got some fish. I was so excited when I contacted him. I contacted through Jason. And I was looking for certain fish, and he says, "Yeah, you can get them from Rosario." I'm like, "Ooh, I'm getting them." It's like getting stuff delivered from God Himself. He's handing it to you.
I just ordered that. I ordered it. Well, I didn't want the chat to get to it before me, so I wasn't saying anything when I got my order in.
It's not a big book, but it's so easy to read. But but like you and I, we face other challenges that maybe our southern people don't face. But we could go ahead and set up. We'll get our meta frame tank. Well, you and me will each get a steel frame tank with a slate bottom. And then here we'll digress for a second. Do you have any idea? And somebody in the chat will know. I don't know, but why did it have a slate bottom? I don't know that.
You want me to say it?
Do you know? I don't know.
Yeah. To heat it with a candle.
Ooh, that makes good sense. Cancel or like a Bunsen burner or something. That's true. That'd make total sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's interesting. That's why they had the slate bottom so they could heat it. Or at least that's what my understanding is. I might be wrong. I mean,
people have already backed you up. All your peeps are jumping in, said, "Oh, Joey's right." I didn't know that.
Yeah,
makes total sense, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the metal frames, of course. I think the metal frames at one point must have been. I don't know. I'm only guessing at some of this stuff just based off of some of the things I know from building some fish tanks. And I don't build a lot of fish tanks. I've just built a lot of different types out of different materials. And you learn a lot. That's what I like to do. I like to do things I haven't done yet. I don't think it's fun to build a fish tank over and over and over again. I could never do it. I hate it. I'm not a craftsman. I don't have the patience. And I get bored really, really quick.
Well, I like the guys that are also like, push the envelope a little bit. I'm not saying like those guys on that show that was on TV that, they would do all the crazy stuff. Most of us don't have that funds just sitting there behind us going, I wonder if I took a VW bug and built an aquarium in it. Most of us don't do that sort of stuff.
I hate those. I hate those.
The guy's name's escaping me. He's so creative. You did a podcast with him, and I feel like an absolute dick that the His name's escaping me right now. He's into all the old school, what do you call that? Steampunk stuff. He made that aquarium. Sean, that's who it is. Yeah. I love the creativity of like, oh, I think I can make an aquarium out of that.
Podcast back soon, but right now my computer's sitting on my kitchen table, and this isn't the best place for it. But I'm almost ready to bring everything back outside and set it all back up to have that podcast going. But definitely want to get back to weekly on that. I really miss doing that. It was fun. The downside is all of those episodes were filmed in the same week.
Yeah. Every night we're doing this.
I'll do one a week probably moving forward or something, but
no, but if you bang off, if you did a solid week where you bang off, or if you could have it that you could do 2 in a day, one in the early afternoon, one in the evening, and you get like, that's the way I like to do my videos, not the filming but the editing. I love to have that cushion. I like to have 3, 4, 5 videos. I drove here 6 hours yesterday or the day before, and I had a video for Sunday and for Wednesday. And Wednesday is that today or yesterday? I don't know. The video came out, and for those who haven't seen it, it's all about castrating pigs. It's fascinating. And then that was it. I have no videos. So like last night, after you and me badgering each other, last night I stayed up a little bit late. I was kind of in a bit of panic mode, and I've got 2 videos edited. So that carries me through for Sunday and Wednesday next week. And then I have the third one that was, it's all ready to go. I just got to upload it and make the thumbnail. So that gives me that breathing room again, because to me, the minute I get home, it's challenging for me to have that creative time just to sit down and actually do the editing. It's no disrespect to my family. It's just, as well as I do when you're doing this, you can't just, a lot of the times, you can't just pick up and go off the fly. I can't.
I do. I shouldn't, but I a lot of times I just grab my camera and I go outside, or I'm already out there and I don't even know what I'm going to film. I just figure something out.
Well, the difference being though is like you have an aquarium gallery with a bunch of tanks, right? When this whole thing was kind of starting, when the pandemic was kind of getting going, I kind of had this idea where now's the perfect time to gut everything, start over, and build a lair for the mad aquarist. And that's what I'm doing. The only problem being is I didn't take into account the skyrocketing lumber. I didn't take all these other things, and like the access to just random materials. All of a sudden you go to the store, and I live 40 minutes away from from Winnipeg. You drive all the way into town and they have no silicone, or they have no expanding foam, like at all. And you go to 3 stores and they're all out. Well, it doesn't matter if I go home and come back tomorrow. They're still going to be out. I got to wait like 2 weeks before trying again until they can possibly get restocked. And I don't know if that's a Winnipeg thing because we're more central and we're not right on the direct routes. I have no idea. But I've dealt with those type of issues every single step of the way of this. And then Spencer, who's one of my best friends, and he's also my main fish guy. Well, he's a wholesaler. Your source is a pet store. So he would sell potentially to stores, or he could sell to hobbyists direct. And he has 2 totally vastly different price lists. But with him, because of where we are, the access to actually getting in fish, like you mentioned, he says, if I want to order from Peru, I can get from Peru, I can get from here, I can get from here. He can't, because there's only 1 flight coming out of Toronto a day. And if the flight is full cargo-wise, his fish don't move. They don't care where they came from. They can come all the way from the jungles of Colombia, make it all the way up to Toronto, and then they'll sit there for 2-3 days, and it's his problem. It's not the airlines. So he's really had a struggle through this. He's thrived, but just accessing getting those fish in, for me, I want fish, same as you. You want fish that you could talk about and tell that story. But until my room's done, I can't just pick up the camera, go around and film. I have nothing running.
I think it's the availability. Nobody predicted a global pandemic. I mean,
is what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, things happen, and I thought things would be completely normal by the time the new place was going to the lease start. And things would have been much easier to do. But, again, still the same thing. It was really hard, really expensive. I mean, just building stands and stuff was thousands and thousands of dollars, like, I don't know, $8,000. And I wasn't even.
Those ones that are in the video that are all chipped and all the drywall is leaning up against them and all those ones?
Yeah.
They're literally the only thing you didn't take out of there, and they just used them as sawhorses.
Yeah, and it's weird because when I took everything out of there, he didn't know that I was leaving. So they did all that on their own. It's not like they knew, well, he's never coming back, so you go ahead and use them.
Yeah.
They would have been under the assumption that I was coming back is what I would assume. But
can you imagine, if that was somebody's home? Would you use their kitchen table? Would you use any of their furniture for anything like that? No.
There's other things that I didn't talk about, like they were going through my personal things. They were going through my office and my equipment and rummaging, and there's things that I couldn't see on camera and whatnot. And I told the landlord, and I was like, "What? Nothing's safe in here. I can't sit here and babysit everybody all the time." And I gave him an offer, and he basically said, "Kick bricks." So. Yep. I was that, and my offer was pretty basic. I was like, "Look, I want these for as long as this takes. I mean, I need I want my months back, and I would like you to cover all of the costs that I've incurred because of this, and only the costs that are directly related to the effects that I'm facing, and I'll deal with everything else." And he's like, "No." Yeah. So
now is Truro? I've never been to Truro. Is Truro really that small that another dream space won't pop up?
Oh gosh, no. It's tiny. Yeah, I mean, if
how
you
far
want,
away is Halifax? Which is
so down Halifax. Yeah, Halifax is what I think they've got the HRM, which is the Halifax Regional Municipality. I think there's like 500,000 people there, whereas Truro has, I think officially it has like 18,000 or something. Okay. So it's way, way bigger there, but that's an hour away, and I can't drive that every day.
No, but but Halifax also then opens up for bigger and better down the road. We're just spitballing here, guys.
Well, the place that I had was right downtown, and downtown is one street here. It's a one-way street, and that's downtown, and I was right on it. It was the best.
About, people flying into Halifax. They've been following you for years, and they're from. Doesn't matter. They're from Spain. They've been following you for years, and their dream is to go and visit this aquarium. They're going to fly from Spain to Toronto to Halifax. They're going to rent a car, and they're going to drive down to visit the thing. In Truro, if Truro's that small, where are they staying?
Oh, it's not like we have, 7 or 8 hotels that are always empty, but we have tons of hotels, tons of restaurants. We have tons of everything. There's just not enough people to keep everybody in business. So, what do we have? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got like 5, 6, maybe 7. I don't know how many hotels. We've got enough. And the airport's technically 25 minutes away from exit to exit, and it's not. The airport's like 20 minutes from Halifax. It's not in Halifax, but it is called the Halifax International Airport. But yeah, there are plenty of places for people to stay, of course. And, some people were like, what would you do within the summer months? And you should have had a lawyer look over the contract beforehand, and you should have surveyed the area. I did all that. I just can't mention it all in a YouTube. Yeah. There's certain things that I didn't, that were like irrelevant and I didn't really want to talk about or wasn't adding to it, but I did all that. I mean,
well, in the summer months, you just offer free camping in your yard.
Summer months would have been my busiest months.
We just camp in your yard, set up tents.
Summer months would have been my busiest months. Some people are like, "You're going to be dead in the summer. Like nobody's going to come," and it's just the complete opposite here. The summer would have been the busiest by far. Yeah.
They're asking how far is St. John's, New Brunswick? I don't know where. I live in Manitoba. It's way on the other side. We don't. Yeah, there's all those 2 provinces.
Yeah, St. John's, New Brunswick is still within the land of Canada. It's probably 6 hours from here. 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, something like that.
Because, like you and me, when we talked at the very, very infancy of this and stuff like that, is never, ever sell yourself short. You're a brand, whether you like it or not. You're a brand, and you're a global brand. So you could set up this thing. You could find a space that's going to work. And like a pet store, you could franchise it down the road.
Yeah.
And like realistically, you could start it in Truro, but realistically for growth, it has to go to bigger centers.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have maybe done something in Halifax or something like that. I don't know what the future holds for me, but what I am going to do is simply I'm doing two things. Of course, I got to wait to figure out what the end result will be here with all of that. But my priority is just getting back to actually enjoying my hobby as opposed to making sure everybody else is enjoying it. And, it's been a few months that I've got to spend real time with my fish and got to do what I wanted, and, just doing all that stuff. It was kind of taken away from it. It's just been refreshing. I'm inspired, and what I'm going to be working on out there and what I'm doing is it's going to look exactly like, Joe, this was definitely what Joey wanted to do. And this definitely looks like something he would do without making sure I'm pleasing everybody else.
And the reality is that nobody really recognizes, because nobody wants to recognize or actually because they have nothing invested in it. But, when you're planning something on this scale, it's not something you entered into lightly. It took months and months and months of work, late nights going over all this stuff and talking about it, going over in your head, can I do this? What's going to work? What's not going to work? It always is a gamble, and that better than anybody. And it doesn't work. So, but during that whole time, while you're doing that, you still have everything else at home that you still got to contend with and deal with, but it's not at the same level because you're all intending on taking it all there.
Yeah.
And nobody can appreciate that. So like, maybe I didn't scrub algae on that tank, because that doesn't matter really. I'm not planning on filming this stuff. I'm planning on filming that stuff.
Yeah.
And people just don't get that. That's not sounding disrespectful to any of the viewers and fans. That's just reality. You still have a life that goes on, and realistically now, it's nobody's business what has to happen next. But bottom line is, you have to get through what you got to get through right now. You got to deal with what's before you in regards to this, and until that's over, you can't do anything else. Yeah. Right. Other than what you were talking about earlier about what the changes that you want to make with the gallery and stuff. Until all the other things dealt with and resolved, you got to just go forward with what you're doing.
Yeah.
People don't respect that. They can
kick
piss
bricks.
off.
Yeah, it's
probably a lighter way of saying it.
It's all, this is all new for everybody, and I think that's why I wanted to hang with my buddy last night, because
but not tonight. No, he's not hanging with his buddies tonight.
No, that's why I'm hungover and not that like energetic and stuff. But because when I put that video out, I knew that this was going to be fresh for everybody, and I already kind of had that emotional roller coaster, and I knew I was going to have to relive it again yesterday. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to crack some cold ones and stay off the internet for the evening. And usually it's the opposite with me. If I start drinking some beers, I'm like, I should get on the internet, and that's the last thing I should be doing. But you know what? Let's go.
I was kind of expecting that a bit more, and I thought, I got to put. That's why I put the disclaimers at the beginning. It's going to be the big boys talking for a bit here. We don't really know where it's going to go, but
we'll do this again. I definitely want to do it again. I got to get you on my podcast again, and
I got a guy here in the comments. He's been watching Joey for videos for 6 years. Keep up the good work and doing what you've been doing. Going to watch Briggs. I don't know who that guy is. My name doesn't have an R in it. And see what his channel's all about. Well, Marco77, I'd be honored to have you. Joey will tell you that I am well known in the fish community, but however, if you go to my channel right now, you're going to see pigs getting castrated. You're going to see tarantulas. You're going to see isopods. You're going to see plants and weird things. But there is tons of fish stuff coming. It's just, if you've listened to the conversation, fish stuff for me has been a bit of a challenge due to the pandemic.
Yeah, bit of a mess right now, but I'm going to call it a night. It's almost midnight here, and I'm getting a little sleepy, and I'm just going to slowly bring everybody's energy down. It's like a bedtime story right now for me.
Well, I appreciate it, my friend. It was a blast. We are still going to do it because remember, you were the one that started this. You were the one a long time ago sent me that message after a live feed saying we got to do a late night live feed where we can drink. You're the one that started that, so I was prepared.
We'll do it probably by the next few weeks for sure. But we'll see what happens. It's one of those nights where I woke up and I was like, I'm never drinking again.
Well, I appreciate it greatly, my friend. For all of us that were here, thank you very kindly for joining us. We had a blast, and I'm sure we're going to do it again. So with that, my friends, we'll say good night. Cheers.
See you guys.